What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today once again we've got a ton of bits of news and info and details about the Warmind DLC, and we're going to be running up all inside this video. So we're going to be talking about the new vendor coming to the game with the expansion, and also how their loot system works. Also the Hive worm god that is secretly involved in the DLC, which is super interesting. On top of that, there is a new exotic catalyst system, so we'll be going over how that works, and even information about this DLC's raid layer and future raids after that, believe it or not. So like I said, a ton to get through. Of course, if you want to support the channel, a like rating down below would be much appreciated, and let's jump into it. So with Mars being the new planet added to the director with the DLC, of course similar to Sloan and Failsafe and Ashimir, all the others, we're getting a new NPC vendor for the planet. So unsurprisingly, the new vendor we're getting for Mars to trade in our tokens is going to be none other than Anna Bray. Complete patrols and public events on Mars to get Mars tokens and earn rewards from Anna Bray. So of course you get Mars tokens from public events and chests and all the other places you get tokens from, and she's the one you're going to trade into. We haven't seen yet her social space or the little kind of hub where she's going to be inside. Obviously every planet has that little spot where there are no enemies and you can go and trade with a vendor, but it definitely wasn't in the location I was in this gameplay, so it's probably somewhere else on the map, maybe the OSPREY buildings or the Rasputin bunker. Now we can also see a full set of armor, which of course is earned from Anna Bray. It's called the BRAYTECH gear set. It's kind of this Arctic snowy themed gear, but this is going to be earned from her Engrams. But as well as the armor, there's also a full set of BRAYTECH weapons, so we're not exactly sure if those are going to be inside the Engrams as well. I mean, pretty much all the other NPCs don't have weapon sets or specific weapons, they have their own armor sets, but the weapons are just kind of that general pool that you get from the gunsmith and every other vendor. Now Brother Vance, the Mercury vendor, does of course have those prophecy weapons, but those weren't inside the Engrams, so we aren't exactly sure if all these weapons are going to be earned through a separate system like the prophecies, or they could just be directly inside Anna Bray's Engrams. But either way, a full set of weapons and armor from Anna Bray, the new vendor. She is of course also a character inside the story, so you're going to encounter her and of course meet her along the way. She's going to help you with stuff. She is, like I've said, is a descendant of the Bray family, so her family and that company OSPREY built Warminds and Exos, Rasputins, and even Siva, so she's gonna have a lot of story details and a lot of discovery of her past, I guess. But yeah, there you go. That is Anna Bray, of course, one of the main story characters, and also going to be sticking around into the end game as a vendor. So next up, I want to talk about the main enemy of this expansion, which at first we kind of thought would be Nokris. It was kind of advertised and shown in a lot of images that Nokris, of course, is a big Hive threat, and we've heard that Nokris and his army were kind of worshipping Zul, one of the Hive worm gods, and they were up to no good basically. So as it turns out, Nokris isn't the only threat. There's actually a much bigger and badder one behind the scenes. So on the official Destiny the Game website for the second expansion, it says, as Golden Age warsats begin slamming into the ice, the glaciers begin to thaw, revealing the core of the Warmind Rasputin and an ancient Hive army bent on its destruction. And then it says, now free, the Hive swarm in service to their god Zul, which I've talked about before. But then it says, help Anna discover her past and destroy the Hive's gargantuan worm god before it's too late. So pretty crazy. It actually says that we're going to be destroying this Hive worm god, not just facing it or facing the Hive kind of under it. I'm guessing in this expansion we're actually going to be killing a Hive worm god, which in the lore is a pretty big deal. Like, we're talking way bigger and way more powerful than like Atheon, Axis, Oryx, Callus. Like, these guys are really, really powerful. And I'm pretty sure the worm gods are like directly a part of the darkness. So this will be kind of the closest to the darkness we've ever gotten to. But I'm really hoping they do it justice, because like I said, in Taken King, they hyped up the worm gods to be these like really, really important characters. So I'm hoping it's not just like a strike boss or a story boss. That would be really bad, I think. Like we all know in Destiny, every single campaign boss has been a pushover, because they kind of have to be. It's the campaign that's supposed to be super difficult. But it's always disproportionate because Ghoul just destroyed the entire last city. But again, it was a massive pushover. So it doesn't really link up. So I think if we just stomp over Zul as a campaign boss, then it'll be pretty kind of anticlimactic to what Bungie have been building for the last like 2 or 3 years. At the same time, I can't really imagine Zul being in the raid layer. I don't think that really would match up. It's possible, but I don't know how Zul would get to the Leviathan. And we also don't even know how the worms work. Like, do you have to go to their throne world to kill them, similar to Oryx and Crota? We have to go into their throne room in a raid to kill them. At the end of the Anna Bray trailer, you can see this giant, huge creature emerging in front of Anna Bray, so it's safe to assume that is Zul, some giant kind of worm-like creature. And even the shape of it does look very similar to the giant shadow you can see under the water in Titan, so it's very likely this big shadow is Zul. But yeah, it's definitely a big surprise. I never thought this would be happening in a small DLC like this, and I'm hoping they do it justice. We don't know which enemy is going to be inside the campaign or the strike or the raid, so it is all still up in the air, and thankfully there's a bit of surprise left. So next up, I wanted to talk about possibly the thing that I personally am most excited for in the DLC and in the May update, and these are Masterwork exotics, which actually sound really interesting. So essentially, exotic masterworks are not going to be the same as legendary masterworks, where you get that small stat bonus and the orb generation perk. So as well as that, every exotic is going to have its own separate benefit or feature of this masterwork system. So one example that's been said is that Vigilance Wing is going to be full auto. The masterwork version of Vigilance Wing is just fully automatic. Hold the trigger and it's going to do all the bursts. So you can see it's definitely a nice bonus. It isn't going to make the weapon overpowered, but it's just a nice feature to empower it even better and kind of max it out. They also said the Legend of Accurus masterwork is going to increase the ammo it can hold, so you can hold even more ammo. And another one I remember is the Crimson Hand Cannon has max range with this masterwork upgrade. So each kind of exotic is going to have its own little kind of way to make it even better. So there are these new things called catalysts for exotics, and they turn the exotics into the masterwork versions of them. Now, to get these catalysts, you need to do certain things which are secrets. Now, Bungie didn't tell us any details of how you get certain catalysts, but examples are things like doing something in Crucible or PvE, like maybe going a 10 kill streak. That isn't one, but it's just an example I thought of. I feel like for the coming weeks after the DLC comes out, pretty much every single day, someone is going to pop up on the internet and be like, hey, I did this weird thing and the catalyst dropped for me. And then it's going to be like, okay, this is how you get the Risk Granite Ornament or the Legend of Accurus or all these exotics. They're all going to have their own separate catalysts. And for each one exotic, those challenges are going to be the same across the board for everyone. But of course, every exotic is going to be different to each other. So before you can plug the catalyst into the exotic and turn it into a masterwork, you have to do another task which is listed, and that's going to enable you to activate it. And honestly, I really like it. On paper, it seems like a very good idea. I'm hoping it is executed as well as it sounds. So yeah, I feel like it's one of the most underrated things coming to the game in May, and I'm honestly more excited for this feature of the exotic masterworks than a lot of things inside the DLC, because you already have pretty much most weapons getting a dramatic buff, and then on top of that, you're going to have a bunch of them being even more powerful with their catalysts. So of course, I will be covering all those on my channel and showing you guys how to get every catalyst or masterwork version of every exotic. And one more thing that Bungie did tell us at the summit is that simply some people will not be able to get every single catalyst. I asked them directly, are some catalysts tied to the raid and also trials, and they said yes. So like I said, expect some people to not be able to earn some of them. This is just an example. I don't know if it's a real thing, but imagine if one of those trials catalysts is only earned through going flawless, for example. It would be really exclusive. Again, that is just an example. I don't know if Bungie would make you go flawless for one of the catalysts, but either way, expect some of them to be pretty difficult. So moving on, let's talk about future raids, how they're going to be structured, and also the raid layer we're getting inside this DLC. So Bungie published that this raid layer is going to be called the Spire of Stars. So obviously means it's going to be set on this giant tower thing on the Leviathan. Strangely enough, I did actually speculate a while back that that giant tower would make a lot of sense to be the location of the second raid layer. The reason I said that back then was because Bungie mentioned how every raid layer is going to show you a different part of the Leviathan, and we've been to the giant city or palace on top of it, we've been to the underbelly and also the planet eater down below. So it kind of makes sense the only place left to go is up the giant tower, and that's where we're going to go. Now, those two giant suns or stars do actually have a lot of lore significance for the Cabal. Inside the lore tab of the Legend of Accurus, it does say how to be a Cabal Emperor, you have to apparently capture stars. No idea how you do that, but I guess it's a thing in the Cabal Empire. So I guess the fact that Callus here has 2 stars maybe shows he's had to become Emperor twice, or maybe just that powerful. I'm also really interested to see who the boss of this raid layer is going to be. We know there aren't really any rules when it comes to the Leviathan. We saw Argos and a bunch of Vex down there, so it could be literally anyone. Maybe Zol ends up on the Leviathan and that's how you take him out. It would make sense for Hive to be the enemy because of course the Vex were inside the first raid layer and there was a curse for Cyrus. So it would make sense if the enemy of this raid layer was the same enemy as the main DLC, but we're not sure if it will work like that. But yeah, speculate down below, who do you think the final boss of this raid layer is going to be? It should be pretty interesting, and I imagine the view from the top of that spire is also pretty cool as well. I personally am really hoping they pay off the story well, because Callus has been teasing a bunch of power and a bunch of secrets, so after we're done with this, I'm hoping it kind of pays off well, because I imagine this is the end of the Leviathan. This is literally the end of a year-long story. I'm pretty sure in September it will start year 2, and we'll go to an entirely different raid, which will be somewhere else, and maybe that'll have its own raid layers. So on the topic of September and future raids, something pretty interesting was said by Joe Blackburn, one of the lead designers of raids, and this was in response to feedback of people saying they want to see more bosses in raids. Obviously, the Leviathan just had Callus, and the raid layer just had Argos. So Joe Blackburn from Bungie tweeted saying, yeah, pretty much in future raids, we're going to have more bosses. You guys are right. I think everyone generally likes Leviathan. Everyone can agree it's a very good raid, but the main criticism is there aren't really enough bosses, and people prefer more bosses over more encounters and puzzles like Leviathan. It's just a lot more satisfying as a player to see and fight and defeat a boss than, say, just defeating an encounter like the Gauntlet, where you just kind of have a chest pop up. So yeah, for future raids, which I assume is going to be in September, I wouldn't expect any more info than that. Bungie are always, of course, very secretive about raids, but pretty cool to know we're getting more bosses. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Of course, if you enjoyed it and would like to support the channel, a thumbs up down below before you leave would be massively appreciated. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about right now, so I'm going to make a lot of videos. videos. And of course, when the DLC launches, I'm going to make even more. So if you're new to my channel, make sure you are subscribed if you aren't already. Until then, if you want to watch another video from me, you can click the image on screen right now to be taken to it. But of course, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.